What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk to you about ticker OKLO. This stock has been absolutely on fire. I want to break it down on what's been really driving it higher, what analysts are saying, and if this is a good time to get in or not. Before we get into any of that, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So on Friday alone, it went up 28.83%, 107 the low, $136 the high. So there was a new all-time high created for this stock, and you saw a lot of volume. So 63.5 million shares being traded, 16.4 is the average. So as far as official news, nothing came out from the company. So last PR came out September the 4th, but referring back to this news that came out as well, saying that they were planning to have a 1.7 billion Tennessee plant to recycle nuclear waste. That was rubber stamped and approved. So it looks as though that was the main reason why it ran up like crazy. One thing that did also come out after hours on Friday, which was rather interesting, at 6:17 there was a Form 4 that was submitted, which did signal that the CFO, Richard Craig, did convert and sell a lot of shares. And it wasn't for tax purposes. This works out to be, I believe it's like 9 million shares. So transaction code S right here is a straight up sell, not for tax purposes or anything along those lines. So it's poor timing if you ask me. But then again, if I was a insider executive, I got it for this price at $3.18, hell, I'd probably sell a lot too. So in general, one thing you have to keep in mind with this stock is that it earns no revenue. Of course, I think generally this will expedite that, so kind of move that up. But nonetheless, still as of right now, at the time of doing this video, it is kind of pre-revenue. So kind of crazy stuff happening with just generally the market, as well as ticker OKLO, because even looking right over here, over the last 1 year, it is up 1,945%. As far as shorts, on Friday, they did increase 173,000, not all that much. 13.52% of the free floats being shorted works out to be 15.35 million shares. So shorts have been losing their asses over the last little bit. So just in general, they lost probably in the last 3 months, just shy of about $1.1 billion. So crazy stuff. Obviously by me bringing this up, I'm definitely not saying that this is a squeeze play or anything. It's just more of a good kind of additional DD. One thing as well I wanted to give you a overview of, these are some of the latest analyst ratings. So there was one that came out 4 days ago, a $90 buy by H.C. Wainwright. Analyst has a 40% success rating, so not all that great. 10 days ago, 92 buy Bank of America. Analyst has a 49% success rating. And at the time of doing this video, that is the highest analyst rating on it. So $92. And then you have 65 UBS and so forth and so forth. A lot of that is correlated with the most recent earnings as well. So again, just something to keep in mind. As a consensus over the last 3 months, $72.50 is that price target, and that does represent a 46.39% downside. From Friday, we did see 398 million in calls, 138 million in puts, 55 million in additional premiums. So definitely a lot of big money was getting into ticker OKLO. 51% of all of it was bullish in nature. So people anticipate a little bit more upside. From a bull standpoint, you see a consensus for it to be roughly around that 135 to pretty much as high as 150 going into next week. Most likely what will also happen next week is, given the price action, market makers are going to add additional chains, because currently the highest is 165. So most likely market makers are going to add that, which probably will stimulate a little bit more additional positive sentiment, because if market makers are going to boost it to, let's say, 220 or whatever else, then technically people are going to see market makers seeing that as a possibility. One thing as well to keep in mind though is volatility has been massive with the options. So I think there's been some hesitation. I see some people saying that this technically is just overdone and the best way to do it is buying puts. In my opinion, I do kind of fall under that camp that this is probably going to do a lot of good things in the foreseeable future, but at the time of doing this video, it is very overdone coming from a multiple standpoint. So the realistic price, I kind of tend to agree with the average consensus from analysts that it should be roughly around that $74 range. But then again, what do I know? Looking at the bears, they do feel that at least in the foreseeable future, that for the most part, sub $115 is realistic. So they are anticipating a little bit more of a pullback. These are all the transactions that did occur on the secondary market above $100,000. So surprisingly enough, this is why I like to look at a lot of the data, is that you actually see a lot of selling going on. A couple pockets of buying here and there, but for the most part, you do see a lot of pockets of selling. So I think a lot of the volume that did occur, for instance, on Friday, did come from algorithmic trading. And you can kind of see just right here that algos were actually fairly active. So I think it was piggybacking off of just the broader market's sentiment and everything else. Aside from that, though, these are all the transactions that did occur on the dark pool. So dark pool often enough used by hedge funds as well as shorts. But then again, as I mentioned, shorts didn't really do too much overall. A couple big ones though, so 33.9 million. And of course, I think it's very difficult to tell what is buys and what is sells on the dark pool because it's supposed to be anonymous, right? So for instance, even looking at this $33.9 million transaction, you can kind of correlate it with the stock price, but at the same time, you can kind of look at what happened prior to that and above it. So for instance, since it went from $136 down to $135 and then back to $137, it is fair to assume that that $33.9 million was a sell. Looking at the fib levels though, it's above on every spectrum, above everything. So it's in unknown territory, and sometimes that's a good place to be because there's no real resistance in some cases. And even looking on the actual chart, this is what I'm talking about, that it's just massively breaking out. This stock isn't something that I kind of typically look at. If I would have seen this, I would have definitely caught on to it because you can kind of see from September the 10th to the 11th, there was a massive inflow of buying and not that much walls of selling. So you can kind of see just from this market position how just the sellers went away. And honestly, it went through kind of a breakout type of territory. On September the 18th, there was a little bit of hesitation, but because of with the Tennessee news that came out on Friday, it was just easy butter. And this is probably where, on the side note, why the bearish options is signaling about 115 is because there is some gaps right here. So essentially about 113 is something that does need to be kind of done right here. So there's not really much buyers. So again, something to overall keep in mind. So this stock is a very exciting stock, potentially could continue its nice run going into next week. In my opinion, like I said, I'm kind of more on the bearish side, that I feel like a little bit of a consolidation is due, but honestly, what do I know in life? One thing as well, like I said, to kind of that might also validate that it is overdone is just the fact that the CFO actually did kind of convert very fast and took advantage and sold. Keep in mind, they also did convert it on the 17th, so they didn't even catch nearly as high as it did go, which probably, I'm sure they're kicking themselves. But again, if they're doing that and really converting and wanting to sell ASAP at the 90s, so they sold at 94, 93, 101, it goes to show even at that stage, maybe the CFO saw it as overvalued. But do your own due diligence. This stock is definitely going to be a very volatile one. I wouldn't really recommend shorting it because with momentum plays, you can definitely lose your ass very fast with them. So again, just have fun, enjoy the ride if you are in it. Let me know your thoughts. Have you been buying? Have you been selling? What's your general 2 cents on all of this? One final thing, if you are looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, pop over to my Patreon. I put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades. Worthwhile to pop over there and take a look over the weekend and yeah, get a good feel for what I see as good buys in the broader market. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.